My name is C. Thomas Howell, and I'm coming to Sheffield, Alabama this Saturday to screen The Outsiders and hold the Q&A and a meet and greet. So I'm looking forward to wrap my arms around all you people down there in Alabama. I've spent a little bit of time in Alabama. Been down to Muscle Shoals area, and been down south toward the beach down in Mobile. But I used to live in Nashville, so it wasn't that big of a trip. And I've spent my fair share of time in Alabama. My father was a prominent stuntman in his day, had a great career, and prior to that he rode bulls for 10 years for a living. And I grew up wanting to be a professional cowboy. Rodeo is a big part of my family's life, and um, automatically assumed that if the rodeo thing didn't work out for me, I might just fall into my father's footsteps there, so to speak, and become a stuntman. Well, at a very young age, um, I acquired an agent that repped commercials, and I started getting jobs like Kool-Aid and Dr. Pepper and things like that because I was pretty active and I could ride the horses and do some of the physical stuff being from a stunt family. Well, one day my commercial agent approached my father and said, "There's a gentleman named Steven Spielberg casting a movie called E.T. and we'd like to send Tommy out on the audition." And I never had plans on being an actor. I never expected to get the role. And lo and behold, I landed E.T. And that was, of course, Steven Spielberg. And the next thing that came around for me was The Outsiders. And I started that long auditioning process and got quite close with Francis and was cast in that movie. And when you're 14 and 15 and you go from Steven Spielberg to Francis Ford Coppola, your young career is set for you, so to speak. So I got very lucky and had some great examples set for me from some very talented people. And I took the bull by the horns, and I decided I wanted to become an actor after that. When I was 14, 15 years old, my dream was to be a professional rodeo cowboy. I didn't want to be an actor. So the opportunity to work in the field that could pay me a significant amount of money, more than a paper route or cleaning stalls ever could do, just gave me a better opportunity for a faster horse or a bigger truck or a step closer to chasing that gold belt buckle, which was my dream, being a cowboy. So honestly, I didn't have um, the desire or a set mother pushing me, dressing me properly, grooming me, if you will, to become, a child star. I can remember going to these auditions for The Outsiders and looking around and seeing these kids all greased up in their hair and dressed in their Levi's and Converse. And I showed up in my Elmo T-shirt, and look back on those interviews now, and what I once sort of deemed as sort of cringeworthy, I recognize as a young, innocent, uh, committed, grounded y- teenage boy that uh, didn't really have a desire to be a movie star. And I think both Spielberg and Coppola recognized that because I was genuine. I didn't have I wasn't seeing the final outcome. I didn't care if it was a giant hit or if I was famous. And I think that was refreshing for them and gave me a leg up during the audition process, which eventually landed me the job. How did I find out that I got the role? I think I was at home doing chores. That was first and foremost. My father would never allow me to think that to forget where I came from. I had chores to do, feeding livestock and cleaning stalls and watering. I was probably out in the barn working. My father came out and shared the news, and I was just so excited. There was a certain part of this very, long process of auditioning. I think it was probably 6 to 8 weeks, and there was a part of me after a while that felt like I had become that character, and it felt pretty obvious that I was going to get the role. Though, there's no promises in Hollywood. But when I was finally hired on, um, I felt like I had won the lottery. When the auditioning process for The Outsiders came my way, and I read the book and I read the script and I started working with Francis, I knew that was an experience that I wanted to participate in. Um, the relationships and the friendships that we generated and created, just amongst the greasers alone, are lifelong. I mean, I speak to that cast all the time, and whenever we cross paths, it's nothing but hugs and praises. So, you know, when you're talking, Tom Cruise, Patrick Swayze, Ralph Macchio, Emilio Ellen, Diane Lane, Leif Garrett, uh, all these people went on to have magnificent careers, and not by accident. They were all uh, meticulously handpicked over a very long time, and we spent a lot of time auditioning and working together. So when we finally landed the roles, we felt like we won something. We felt like we had achieved something. We accomplished something. So there was jubilation and excitement headed to Tulsa when we finally boarded those planes and went to go make this movie. Um, Patrick and I, rest his soul, ended up doing 3 pictures together. So he really was like a brother to me. Rob Lowe was one of the kindest people I've ever met in my life. Um, Ralph and Emilio and Matt all were deeply responsible for teaching me how to break down a script, how to, what rehearsal was for, how to put a character together. I was 14, 15. They all had more experience than I did. So the bonds were there, and still there today. And I think that's probably the favorite thing that I've taken away from that experience. As far as challenges go, when you're 13, 14, 15 years old in the film business, I didn't have a family to support. I didn't have a mortgage to pay. I was just in the moment, and sucking everything up and learning as much as I could. I wasn't afraid to. Um, there really, there was no fear because I had nothing to lose. There was no failure. It's different when you're 40 years old and you have 3 kids and you walk in the door and you need a job. But when you're 14 playing a 14-year-old, you're not thinking outside the box. I'm not worried about the outcome or the final destination. I'm just in the moment, connecting, trying to learn as much as I possibly can, and living my best life. So, it's a very different experience when you're working with people like Steven Spielberg and Francis Ford Coppola at a very young age, because those examples of professionalism are all being set for you every single day. So, I had to behave like an adult at 14, and I understood my responsibility of showing up on time and being prepared and trying to make those around me better. But at the same time, I didn't have a family or a mortgage, so I really had nothing to lose. It was just a win-win situation. Well, I had an amazing director guiding me the whole way. And I wasn't as aware of the profound moments from a story perspective at the age of 14. Um, I we had Essie Hinton on the set every day. So between Susie Hinton and Francis, our director, they created a safe environment for us to be able to take risks and accept challenges, whether I was getting, drowned in a fountain or punched in the face in a rumble or burning down a church. To me, I always felt that I was more than taken care of. I was in a very safe place, and I wanted to give my all in every scene, whether it was a physically demanding scene or an emotionally demanding scene. I never showed up thinking, oh well, this scene is more important than another. I addressed every scene as a powerful moment, and I was present, connected, and reacting to what was happening. So it didn't matter to me from a story standpoint what it was that we were doing that day. I, I just knew that I was living that role and um, loving every minute of it. Some of my favorite moments uh, shooting The Outsiders happened offset. There was such a there were so many beautiful friendships, and we were all so close that there were a lot of pranks. A lot of jokes took place on the set. I remember coming home one day, and I had worked all evening, and the sun was coming up, and I went into my room. And sorry, that's my puppy Waylon. I went into my room, and Waylon, stop. I went into my room, and everything had been turned upside down. Everything from a penny to my bed. So uh, I also remember one day we all came home, and Rob wasn't working, and somebody had unscrewed the eyepiece from his door and sprayed a, a fire extinguisher into his room, and then got on the hallway phone and said, Rob, there's a fire. We got to get out. And we all ran downstairs into the lobby. And we'll never forget, he had his Nikon camera slung over his shoulder, and nothing but his underwear and socks. And we laughed for 20 minutes. So things like that took place on the set of The Outsiders constantly. And of course, um, the meals that Francis Ford Coppola prepared for us at lunchtime out of his own bus, uh, I will never forget the pastas and the lasagnas and the stories that he shared about working with people like James Caan and Dennis Hopper and Marlon Brando, and Gene Hackman. And we were just mesmerized, and of course, um, the love that was created back then, because we were living in a much simpler time. We didn't have the distractions that everybody has today. The Outsiders was written over 50 years ago, but still resonates today in our young people, because it doesn't matter what side of the tracks you come from. We still have this division of the haves and the have-nots. But The Outsiders teaches us how to care for each other, how to love each other, and more importantly, how to love ourselves. When you see these tough kids that are in gangs and carrying switchblades and fighting, talking about sunsets and poetry and reading Gone with the Wind, that is something different than what the kids are experiencing on social media today, or any other novel, mind you. So there's really a character for everybody in The Outsiders, whether you're a Johnny Cage fan, a Dallas Winston fan, or a Ponyboy fan, or if you're a Soch lover, if you connect with Cherry Valance or Bob or Randy. There's a character for everybody. And I have seen a million stay gold tattoos in my day. I've had people come up to me and share heart wrenching stories about reading this book to a loved one that's terminally ill, or watching the Outsiders with their family, and sharing moments of just pure love and excitement from a movie that was made in the early 80s. And for me, we never anticipated that The Outsiders as a film would be a part of, you know, America's pop culture, and we certainly never really anticipated uh, The Outsiders being required reading in 75% of the schools across America. And that's what creates new fans for me every year. I get a new batch of 13, 14, 15-year-old kids coming to my social media crying because Dallas and Johnny are dead. And then they see that Ponyboy is almost 60 years old and they really start crying. It depends because, the phrase stay gold um, has evolved with me over the years. It meant something when I was 14, um, much different than when I was 21, much different than when I was 40, much different than when I was in my 50s. You know, uh, a lot of people ask me about the play and about the poem "Nothing Gold Can Stay," and what did that mean to Ponyboy, and what does it mean to Tommy? And essentially, I think it reflects um, the circle of life, new beginnings, starting over. But it also reflects an innocence, um, beauty, and it reminds me that everything changes in life. So, stay gold, really, I think, is a reminder to be our best and to wake up every day and know that it's a new beginning and it's an opportunity to um, love those around us, love ourselves, and try to make the world a little better place for not just us but for everybody. And uh, it's such a beautiful phrase. I've seen a million stay gold tattoos in my day, and I think so many people can connect and relate to that simple two-word phrase that Susie Hinton masterfully coined when she was 15, 16 years old. But for me, it's a reminder to be my best and to know that even during a hard time, tomorrow morning is a new opportunity. And like the poem states, um, flowers bloom and they die, and the essence of that is what stay gold really reflects. We get a new opportunity every morning to be our best, to blossom, to show our prettiest colors, to give back, whether it's to a family member, to a coworker. Really about setting that example and being our very best, and that's what stay gold means to me. Well, The Outsiders has lived in perpetuity for over 50 years. It's required reading in schools, in probably 70% of the schools across America. It's been translated into 40 different languages worldwide. There's been over 10 million prints in America alone. The It's a film. As far as the film goes, it's a fan favorite and has been for years and years and years. There's a Tony Award winning play on Broadway right now that people absolutely love. And I may have said this already, but I never anticipated that. um I feel like um the cream rises to the top, and S.E. Hinton unknowingly penned something that was so relatable for so many of us, no matter what age we are. I mean, I think the book is can be found in sort of the young adult reading section. But I think if you haven't read the book and you're an adult, you should pick it up and read it. It's a great read, and uh, to be a part of that, to be a part of American pop culture, and to have been played the role of Ponyboy and have so many people respect that and relate to that. is a gift that keeps on giving. The most important thing at these screenings for me is to have a good time, to share some of my stories that people aren't aware of that went into the filmmaking and the people involved in that process. And also to, I can't tell you the amount of tattered and broken down outsiders novels that come out of the basement, the attic, the bookshelves, the drawers that I signed for people, along with the occasional ripped up Tiger Beat magazine that most of our young people would have no idea what that is today. But it's just an opportunity for me to connect and to share a part of my heart. Um, we hold these events. It's a platform for me to express the importance of literacy with the younger people. The people come to see me, but I come to see them. And we have an energetic exchange that is filled with love, light, and positivity. And we all walk away from that better people. And that's why I do it, because to see the look on somebody's face that has held that book in their hand for 40 years, or it's been their favorite movie for 40 years, and then get to meet me and we can hug it out and share a moment and send them away with a smile on their heart makes me feel like a better person. So that's why I do it. That's the beauty of this piece and the beauty of the platform and what I love about the Stay Gold Foundation.